The tray hit the marble floor with a crash that made everyone stop talking. Denise Walker stood frozen in the center of the grand ballroom at Riverside Hotel in Seattle. She was 28 years old, wearing her white server uniform, and her hands were shaking. Above her head, crystal chandeliers sparkled like diamonds. Around her, wealthy people in expensive suits and fancy dresses stared at her. Snow was falling outside the tall windows. It was Christmas Eve. Gerald Hammond sat at table 7 in his designer suit, laughing loudly. He had just stuck his foot out on purpose to trip Denise. Now he was yelling at her, calling her clumsy, saying his shoes cost more than she made in a year. His friends laughed with him. Denise's face burned hot with shame. She wanted to cry, but she refused to give them that satisfaction. 3 tables away, a man watched everything. His name was Mr. Kim. He was in his 50s with gray hair, wearing a simple black suit. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were cold and sharp. He pulled out his phone and made one quiet call. That single phone call would change everything. What happened next would shake the entire city of Seattle. But first, you need to know the whole story. Hit that subscribe button right now, because tomorrow we are dropping another powerful story you will not want to miss. Your support helps us bring more stories like this one. And to all our viewers watching from the United States, Australia, Mexico, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, Japan, Jamaica, and everywhere else around the world, thank you. You are the reason we do this. We could not do it without you. Now let me tell you how this all began. To understand what happened that Christmas Eve, you need to know who Denise Walker really was. Denise lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in South Seattle with her 2 children. Her son was 7 years old and her daughter was 5. The apartment was not much to look at. The paint on the walls was old and cracked. The heating did not always work in winter. But Denise kept it clean and filled with as much love as she could give. Every morning, Denise woke up at 5:30. She would make breakfast for her kids, pack their lunches, and get them ready for school. Her son needed help tying his shoes. Her daughter always wanted her hair done in braids. These small moments were precious to Denise, even when she was tired. After dropping the kids at school, Denise would take 2 buses to get to Riverside Hotel. She had worked there for 5 years as a waitress. The pay was not great, but it was steady. Most months, she barely had enough money to cover rent, food, and bills. There were times when she had to choose between buying groceries or paying the electricity bill on time. But Denise had a dream. She wanted to open her own bakery. In her locker at work, she kept a worn notebook. The cover was faded, and the pages were dog-eared from being read so many times. Inside that notebook were recipes she had collected over the years. Chocolate chip cookies, cinnamon rolls, apple pie, banana bread. She also had pages filled with business plans, cost calculations, and sketches of what her bakery would look like. Baking was the one thing that made Denise truly happy. Her grandmother had taught her when she was a little girl. They would spend Saturday afternoons in the kitchen, flour everywhere, music playing on an old radio. Her grandmother would say, "Baby, when you bake with love, people can taste it." Those were some of the best memories of Denise's life. After her grandmother passed away, baking became Denise's way of staying connected to her. It was also her escape from the hard parts of life. When things got difficult, she would bake. The smell of fresh bread or warm cookies made everything feel a little better. For 5 years, Denise had been saving money. Every extra dollar went into a small envelope she kept hidden in her closet. She worked double shifts whenever she could. She skipped buying new clothes for herself. She cut coupons and shopped at discount stores. Slowly, very slowly, the money grew. By Christmas Eve, she had saved $3,000. It was not nearly enough to open a bakery, but it was a start. It was proof that her dream was possible. Denise's children were her reason for everything. Her son wanted to be a firefighter when he grew up. Her daughter loved to draw and wanted to be an artist. Denise wanted to give them opportunities she never had. She wanted them to go to college. She wanted them to never worry about whether there would be food on the table. At work, Denise was known for being kind and professional. Even when customers were rude to her, she stayed polite. Even when her feet hurt from standing all day, she kept smiling. She treated every person with respect, no matter how they treated her. Her co-workers liked her. They knew she was a hard worker. They knew she would cover their shifts when they needed help. They knew she never complained, even though her life was not easy. That Christmas Eve shift was special for one reason. The hotel paid double for working on holidays. Double pay meant Denise could buy her children the Christmas presents they had asked for. Her son wanted a new bicycle. Her daughter wanted art supplies and a doll she had seen in a store window. Denise had been looking forward to this shift for weeks. She had already picked out the gifts in her mind. She knew exactly where she would buy them. She could not wait to see her children's faces on Christmas morning. When she arrived at work that evening at 6 o'clock, she was in a good mood. She put on her white server uniform, tied her hair back neatly, and checked her appearance in the mirror. She looked professional and ready. She had no idea that this night would change her life completely. She had no idea that in a few hours, she would experience one of the most humiliating moments of her life. And she definitely had no idea that a stranger watching from across the room would decide to do something about it. Denise Walker was just trying to survive and build a better future for her kids. She was a good person doing her best in a world that was not always kind to people like her. She deserved respect. She deserved dignity. And she was about to meet someone who understood that. The man sitting at table 12 that night had a story most people in that ballroom knew nothing about. Mr. Kim was 53 years old. He had gray streaks running through his neatly combed black hair. He wore a simple but expensive black suit with no tie. His face was calm and showed no emotion. But his eyes missed nothing. They moved around the room, watching, observing, taking in every detail. To the other guests at the Christmas party, Mr. Kim was just another wealthy businessman. They knew he owned several restaurants in Seattle. They knew he had investments in real estate and shipping companies. Some had heard whispers that he was connected to things that happened in the shadows, things that were not entirely legal. But nothing was ever proven. Mr. Kim was careful. He was smart. And he was respected, mostly because people were a little afraid of him. But Mr. Kim had not always been powerful. He had not always been wealthy. And he had not always been feared. 34 years ago, Mr. Kim arrived in Los Angeles from Korea. He was 19 years old. He had one suitcase, $200, and dreams of building a new life in America. He spoke very little English. He knew no one. He had no connections and no safety net. His first job was washing dishes at a Korean restaurant in Koreatown. The owner was a man who believed that yelling made people work harder. He would scream at young Kim for the smallest mistakes. When Kim broke a plate during his second week, the owner exploded. "You stupid boy. Do you know how much that plate costs? I should take it out of your pay. You are worthless." Kim stood there, wet from dishwater, head down, face burning with shame. The other workers looked away. No one wanted to be the next target. But someone spoke up. Her name was Dorothy. She was a black woman in her 40s who worked as a waitress at the restaurant. She had kind eyes and a strong voice. She stepped between the owner and young Kim. "He is working harder than anyone here," Dorothy said firmly. "He has been here since 6 in the morning. Maybe if you trained people properly instead of screaming at them all day, plates would not break." The restaurant went silent. The owner's face turned red with anger. "You are fired," he told Dorothy. "Get out of my restaurant right now." Dorothy took off her apron, looked at young Kim, and smiled. "Keep your head up, honey. You're going to be just fine." She walked out with her dignity intact. The owner screamed at everyone to get back to work. Young Kim never forgot what Dorothy did that day. She had lost her job to defend him, a stranger, someone who could not even speak English well enough to defend himself. That moment changed something inside Kim. He promised himself 2 things. First, he would become successful enough that no one could ever humiliate him like that again. Second, if he ever had power, he would use it to protect people like Dorothy, people who worked hard and deserved respect. Kim worked 3 jobs for the next 5 years. He washed dishes, cleaned offices at night, and loaded trucks at a warehouse on weekends. He saved every penny. He studied English from library books. He learned about business by watching and listening. When he had saved enough, he started a small import business, bringing products from Korea to sell in America. The business grew slowly at first, but Kim was patient and smart. He made the right connections. He learned which rules could be bent and which ones could not. Some of his business dealings existed in gray areas. He knew people who moved money in ways that banks did not ask questions about. He had relationships with men who solved problems quietly. His reputation grew. People knew that Mr. Kim was someone you did not cross. But they also knew he kept his word and treated his people fairly. By the time he was 40, Kim owned 4 restaurants, 2 import companies, and several properties in Seattle and Los Angeles. He had money and power, but he had no family. He never married. He had no children. Work was everything. He created one absolute rule for everyone who worked with him or for him. Treat working people with respect. Waiters, cleaners, drivers, cooks, anyone doing honest work, they were off limits. Anyone in his organization who was cruel to these people would answer to him personally. And no one wanted that. Mr. Kim rarely got involved in things that did not affect his business. He kept to himself. He attended events like this Christmas party only to maintain relationships with legitimate business owners. He would sit quietly, eat little, drink less, and leave early. But something about what he saw that night hit him differently. Watching Gerald Hammond deliberately trip Denise, watching her stand there with her face full of shame while rich people laughed, it brought back memories Kim had buried deep. He saw young Dorothy standing up for him all those years ago. He saw himself as that young dishwasher, powerless and humiliated. He saw the cruelty of people who believed money gave them the right to treat others as less than human. Mr. Kim pulled out his phone and dialed a number. A man named Danny answered on the first ring. "I need information on someone," Mr. Kim said quietly. "His name is Gerald Hammond. He is a real estate developer here in Seattle. I want to know everything about him. His business deals, his investors, his properties, his debts, everything. I want it by tomorrow morning." "Consider it done," Danny replied. Mr. Kim hung up and watched Denise finish her shift. He watched her fight back tears. He watched her maintain her dignity, even when everything inside her probably wanted to scream or run away. He made a decision that night. Gerald Hammond was going to learn a lesson, and Denise Walker was going to get the chance she deserved. Mr. Kim did not know it yet, but he was about to repay a debt that was 34 years old. Dorothy had stood up for him when he was powerless. Now he would stand up for someone else. Denise arrived at the Riverside Hotel at 6 o'clock that evening. The ballroom was already filling up with guests. She clocked in, checked her appearance one more time, and joined the other servers in the kitchen for their briefing. The manager, Mr. Phillips, gave them their instructions. "This is our biggest event of the year. These are important people. Smile, be polite, and stay invisible. Do your job and let them enjoy their party." Denise nodded along with the others. She had done this many times before. She knew how to be professional. She knew how to smile even when people were rude. She knew how to stay invisible. The ballroom looked beautiful that night. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their lights reflecting off the polished marble floors. Round tables were covered in white tablecloths with gold trim. Each table had a centerpiece of red roses and white lilies. The tall windows showed snow falling gently outside, covering Seattle in white. The guests started arriving at 7. Men in expensive suits. Women in glittering dresses that probably cost more than Denise made in 6 months. They laughed loudly, clinked their champagne glasses, and talked about their holiday plans. Ski trips to Colorado. Vacations in Hawaii. New cars they had bought themselves as Christmas presents. Denise moved between the tables with her tray, offering champagne and appetizers. Most guests did not even look at her. To them, she was just part of the furniture, someone there to serve them and nothing more. Table 7 was the loudest table in the room. Gerald Hammond sat at the center, surrounded by 5 other men in suits. They were his business partners, all competing for his attention, all laughing too hard at his jokes. Gerald was a big man with a red face that got redder as he drank more wine. He wore a designer suit that fit tight across his belly. His voice boomed across the ballroom. He loved being the center of attention. He loved making people laugh, even when the jokes were mean. As the night went on, Gerald got louder and ruder. He snapped his fingers at servers like they were dogs. He complained about everything. The wine was not cold enough. The food took too long. The music was too loud. The other servers tried to avoid his table, but someone had to serve him. Around 9 o'clock, it was Denise's turn. She approached table 7 with a polite smile. "Good evening. Can I get you anything?" Gerald did not look up at first. He was in the middle of a story, waving his hands around, making his friends laugh. "Miss," he suddenly shouted, snapping his fingers at her. "We have been waiting forever. Where have you been?" "I apologize, sir. What can I bring you?" "Finally, someone who knows how to work," Gerald said, his words slightly slurred from alcohol. "Bring us your most expensive bottle of wine. The good stuff, not the cheap garbage you have been serving." "Of course, sir. I will be right back." Denise turned to walk toward the kitchen. She had taken maybe 3 steps when Gerald stuck his foot out into the aisle. It happened so fast. Her shoe caught his ankle and she stumbled forward. The empty tray flew from her hands and crashed onto the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. The entire ballroom went quiet. Everyone turned to look. Denise stood there frozen, her face hot with embarrassment. "Watch where you are going," Gerald shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You almost broke my foot. Do you know how much these shoes cost?" Denise bent down quickly to pick up the tray. Her hands were shaking. "I am so sorry, sir." "Sorry," Gerald laughed. "These shoes cost $3,000. That is probably more than you make in a year, right?" His friends laughed. Other guests at nearby tables smiled and whispered to each other. Denise stood up, holding the tray against her chest. She wanted to say that he had tripped her on purpose. She wanted to tell him that she saw what he did. But she needed this job. She had 2 children at home. She could not afford to make a scene. "I am very sorry, sir," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe if you spent less time daydreaming and more time doing your job, these things would not happen," Gerald continued. "This is supposed to be a high-class place, not some charity program for people who cannot even walk straight." The words cut deep. Denise felt tears building behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, holding her head up even though everything inside her wanted to run and hide. Behind her, she could hear Gerald still laughing, telling his friends some joke about clumsy servers. The other servers in the kitchen saw her face when she came through the door. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. Denise nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She went to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and took deep breaths. She would not cry. She would finish her shift. She would get her double pay. She would buy her children their Christmas presents. That was all that mattered. What Denise did not know was that someone had been watching the whole thing. 3 tables away, Mr. Kim had seen Gerald deliberately trip her. He had seen the humiliation on her face. He had heard every cruel word. Mr. Kim's jaw tightened. His hands gripped his water glass, so hard his knuckles turned white. His eyes went cold in a way that would have frightened anyone who knew him well. He pulled out his phone and made the call to Danny. After he hung up, he sat quietly for the rest of the evening, watching Denise as she came back out and finished her shift. She kept her head up. She stayed professional. She did not let them break her. Mr. Kim respected that. It reminded him of Dorothy all those years ago. Dignity under pressure. Strength when it would be easier to give up. By the time the party ended at midnight, Mr. Kim had made his decision. He stayed in the ballroom after most guests had left. He had a conversation with Mr. Phillips, the hotel manager. Mr. Phillips owed Mr. Kim a favor from years back. Tonight, it was time to collect. "I need you to ask one of your servers to come to your office," Mr. Kim said quietly. "Her name is Denise Walker. Tell her it is important, but do not frighten her." Mr. Phillips nodded nervously. When Mr. Kim asked for something, you did not ask questions. You just did it. Denise changed out of her uniform in the employee locker room. It was almost 12:30 in the morning. She was exhausted. Her feet hurt. Her head hurt. But at least the shift was over. She grabbed her coat and purse, ready to catch the last bus home. All she wanted was to get back to her apartment, check on her kids with the babysitter, and collapse into bed. As she walked toward the employee exit, Mr. Phillips stepped into the hallway. "Miss Walker, could you come to my office for a moment, please?" Denise's stomach dropped. This was it. She was getting fired. Someone had complained about the incident with the tray. Maybe Gerald had demanded she be let go. "Sir, I can explain what happened tonight," she started. "Just come to my office, please," Mr. Phillips said. His voice was strange. Nervous. Denise followed him down the hallway, her heart pounding. She needed this job. What would she tell her children? How would she pay rent? Mr. Phillips opened his office door. Inside, sitting calmly in one of the chairs, was Mr. Kim. Denise recognized him from the party. He had been sitting quietly at table 12 all evening. She had served him once. He had been polite, thanked her, and left a generous tip. "Please sit down, Miss Walker," Mr. Phillips said, gesturing to the other chair. Denise sat down slowly, confused. Why was this guest in the manager's office? Why did Mr. Phillips seem so nervous? "Miss Walker, this is Mr. Kim," Mr. Phillips said. "He would like to speak with you. I will give you privacy." Mr. Phillips left the office and closed the door behind him. Denise sat in silence, unsure what to say. Mr. Kim looked at her with calm, kind eyes. "My name is Mr. Kim," he said gently. "I was at the party tonight. I saw what happened to you." Denise looked down at her hands. "I am sorry about the noise from the tray, sir. It was an accident. You have nothing to apologize for," Mr. Kim said firmly. "That man deliberately tripped you. I saw it clearly. What he did was wrong. What he said to you was wrong." Denise looked up, surprised. Someone had actually seen the truth. Someone had noticed. "Thank you for saying that," she said quietly. Mr. Kim leaned forward slightly. "I want to ask you something, Miss Walker. Do you enjoy working here?" Denise hesitated. "I need this job, sir. I have 2 children to support." "That is not what I asked. Do you enjoy it?" Denise felt tears building again, but this time for a different reason. No one ever asked her questions like this. No one cared about what she wanted. "No," she admitted. "I do not enjoy it. I dream of opening my own bakery someday. I love to bake. It is what makes me happy. But dreams do not pay bills." Mr. Kim nodded slowly. "How much money have you saved toward this bakery?" Denise wondered why this stranger cared, but something about his calm manner made her want to answer honestly. $3,000. "I know it is not much, but I have been saving for 5 years. It is a start." "It is everything," Mr. Kim said. "It shows you are serious. It shows you have discipline and a real plan." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He placed it on the desk between them. "I own a commercial property in the Fremont neighborhood. There is a corner space that has been empty for several months. I would like to offer you a 5-year lease at a rate you can afford. The first 3 months are free. That will give you time to set up your bakery." Denise stared at him. This could not be real. Things like this did not happen to people like her. "I do not understand," she whispered. "Why would you do this for me? You do not even know me." Mr. Kim was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Many years ago, someone helped me when I had nothing. A woman stood up for me when I was being treated badly, just like you were tonight. She lost her job because of it. I never forgot her kindness." He stood up from his chair. "I believe hard work and dignity deserve to be rewarded, Miss Walker. You have both. Call the number on that card tomorrow morning. Ask for the property manager. He will be expecting you." Denise stood up too, holding the business card like it was made of gold. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I do not know what to say. Say you will work hard and build something good." "I will," Denise promised, her voice shaking. "I promise I will." Mr. Kim walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. What happened tonight was wrong. Some people need to learn that their actions have consequences. You focus on your bakery. Leave the rest to me. He left the office quietly. Denise stood there alone, staring at the business card in her trembling hands. She read the name printed on it. Kim Enterprises. A phone number. An address. She walked out of the hotel in a daze. The snow was still falling. The streets were quiet. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang, welcoming Christmas Day. Denise looked up at the sky and thought about her grandmother. Maybe miracles did happen. Maybe good things could come from bad moments. Maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. The morning after Christmas, Mr. Kim sat in his office in downtown Seattle. The sun was barely up. On his desk was a thick folder that Danny had delivered at 6 in the morning. The folder contained everything about Gerald Hammond. Every business deal. Every investor. Every property he owned. Every loan he had taken out. Mr. Kim read through it carefully, making notes on a pad of paper. Gerald Hammond owned 3 major development projects across Seattle. The biggest one was a luxury apartment complex in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. The project was worth $30 million. Gerald had 5 major investors putting money into it. Mr. Kim also learned that Gerald owned 2 older apartment buildings in South Seattle. The buildings were profitable, but according to the report, they had not been properly maintained in years. Mr. Kim picked up his phone. He had calls to make. The first call was to Richard Park, a businessman who owned several hotels in Seattle. Richard was one of Gerald's investors in the Capitol Hill project. He was also someone who had done business with Mr. Kim for over a decade. "Richard, good morning. I hope you had a nice Christmas." "Mr. Kim, always good to hear from you." "Christmas was wonderful, thank you. I am calling because I have some concerns I wanted to share with you. You are invested in Gerald Hammond's Capitol Hill development, correct?" "Yes, I am. It is a good project." "Why do you ask?" Mr. Kim's voice was calm and friendly. I witnessed something at the Riverside Hotel Christmas party that troubled me. Mr. Hammond behaved very poorly toward a staff member. It made me question his judgment and character. I worry about doing business with people who treat working people badly. It often reflects how they handle their professional relationships as well. There was silence on the other end of the line. I see, Richard said slowly. That is concerning. I am not telling you what to do with your money, Richard. I just thought you should know what kind of man you are in business with. Sometimes character matters more than profit projections. I appreciate you sharing this, Mr. Kim. I will think about it. Mr. Kim made 2 more similar calls that morning. Same polite tone. Same gentle concerns. No threats. No demands. Just one respected businessman sharing worries with others. By the end of the day, all 3 investors had called Gerald to pull out of the Capitol Hill project. None of them gave detailed reasons. Just vague statements about reassessing their portfolios and going in different directions. Gerald sat in his office, staring at his phone in disbelief. How could 3 investors all pull out on the same day? The timing was too strange to be a coincidence. But he could not understand what had happened. The project was solid. The numbers were good. He called each investor back, trying to convince them to stay. But their minds were made up. The money was gone. Without those 3 investors, the entire Capitol Hill project would collapse. Gerald stood to lose millions. The next morning, Mr. Kim made a different kind of call. This one was to someone who worked in the Seattle Building Inspection Department. Mr. Kim had helped this person's family years ago when they needed it. Favors given are favors remembered. There are 2 apartment buildings in South Seattle owned by Gerald Hammond, Mr. Kim said. I have heard from tenants that there may be safety issues. Perhaps they should be inspected soon. 3 days later, city inspectors showed up at both of Gerald's buildings. What they found was worse than Mr. Kim expected. One building had fire escapes that were rusted and unsafe. The other had faulty electrical wiring and serious water damage in several units. The city issued violation notices. Gerald had 90 days to fix everything or face massive fines and possible lawsuits from tenants. The repair costs would be over $300,000. Gerald's phone would not stop ringing. His business partners wanted meetings. His lawyer wanted to discuss the violations. His bank wanted to talk about his loans now that the Capitol Hill project was falling apart. Within a week, Gerald's reputation in the Seattle business community started to crumble. People whispered about the failed Capitol Hill deal. They talked about the building violations. Some of his business partners started distancing themselves from him. Gerald knew something was wrong. This was not bad luck. This was too coordinated. Someone was doing this to him. But who? And why? The answer came through his lawyer. An anonymous message was delivered to the law office. It was typed on plain paper with no signature. Mr. Hammond's business difficulties will stop immediately if he makes a personal apology to the owner of Denise's Kitchen Bakery in Fremont. The apology must be sincere and in person. This is the only requirement. Gerald read the message 3 times. Denise's Kitchen? He did not know any bakery by that name. Who owned it? Why would they want an apology from him? His lawyer did some research. Denise's Kitchen had just opened a few days ago. The owner was Denise Walker. Gerald stared at the name, trying to remember where he had heard it. Then it hit him. The waitress. The woman he had tripped at the Christmas party. That Denise. Gerald felt his face go red. Someone powerful had seen what he did that night. Someone powerful enough to destroy his business in less than a week. And that person wanted him to apologize to a waitress. For the first time in his adult life, Gerald Hammond felt real fear. He had built his success on being loud and aggressive and never backing down. But now he was facing someone who operated differently. Someone who moved quietly but struck hard. Someone he could not bully or intimidate. He had 2 choices. Swallow his pride and apologize, or watch his entire business empire continue to fall apart. Gerald had always believed that money and power meant you could treat people however you wanted. He was learning a hard lesson. There was always someone with more power. And some people used that power to protect those who could not protect themselves. Cruelty has consequences, even for people like Gerald Hammond. The morning after Christmas, Denise woke up early. She had barely slept. The business card from Mr. Kim sat on her nightstand. Part of her wondered if last night had been a dream. Her children were still asleep. She made coffee and sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the card. Finally, at 9 o'clock, she gathered her courage and dialed the number. A professional voice answered. Kim Enterprises, this is Patricia speaking. Hello, my name is Denise Walker. Mr. Kim told me to call about a property in Fremont. Oh yes, Miss Walker. We have been expecting your call. Can you meet me at the property this afternoon? Say 2 o'clock. Denise's hands trembled. Yes, I can be there. Patricia gave her the address. Denise wrote it down carefully, her heart racing. That afternoon, Denise took the bus to Fremont. She found the address easily. It was a corner building with large windows facing the street. The space was empty but clean. Through the windows, she could see wooden floors and white walls. A woman in a business suit was waiting outside. Miss Walker? I am Patricia Chun, the property manager. They shook hands. Patricia unlocked the door, and they stepped inside. The space was perfect. There was room for tables and chairs near the windows. The back area was large enough for ovens and workstations. Natural light poured through the windows. Denise could already see it in her mind. Display cases here. The register there. Yellow curtains on the windows to make it feel warm and welcoming. What do you think? Patricia asked. It is beautiful, Denise whispered. Patricia handed her a folder. Here is the lease agreement. The monthly rent is $800. The first 3 months are free, as Mr. Kim promised. After you read everything, if you have questions, call me. Denise opened the folder. $800 a month was less than half what she expected. She could afford that. She could actually afford this. Why is Mr. Kim doing this for me? Denise asked. Patricia smiled gently. Mr. Kim believes in helping people who work hard and have real dreams. That is all I know. If you want to accept, sign the papers and bring them to my office tomorrow. That night, Denise read every word of the lease agreement. Everything was exactly as Mr. Kim had promised. No hidden fees. No tricks. Just a fair deal that gave her a real chance. She signed the papers the next morning. The next 3 weeks were the hardest and most exciting of Denise's life. She used her $3,000 in savings to buy equipment. A used commercial oven, mixing bowls, baking pans, display cases from a restaurant supply store. Every purchase was carefully planned. Every dollar was stretched as far as it could go. She painted the walls herself. Soft cream color that made the space feel warm. She found yellow fabric at a discount store and sewed curtains by hand. She bought small tables and chairs from a thrift store and refinished them. Her children helped after school. Her son painted the baseboards. Her daughter helped arrange the display area. They were so proud of their mother. They told everyone at school that their mom was opening a bakery. Denise had to learn things she had never done before. She studied for her food handler's permit. She filled out paperwork for her business license. She met with health inspectors who checked her kitchen setup. She planned her menu, tested recipes, and figured out pricing. Some nights she worked until 2 in the morning, baking test batches of bread and cookies. She wanted everything to be perfect. She decided to call the bakery Denise's Kitchen. Simple and honest, just like her. Opening day was January 15th. Denise barely slept the night before. What if no one came? What if her prices were wrong? What if people did not like her baking? She arrived at 4 in the morning to start baking. Fresh bread, cinnamon rolls, chocolate chip cookies, apple pie, banana bread. The smell filled the bakery and drifted out onto the street. At 7 o'clock, she unlocked the door. Her hands were shaking. The first customer was an older man who lived in the neighborhood. He bought a loaf of bread and 2 cinnamon rolls. Smells wonderful in here, he said. By 8 o'clock, there were 5 people in line. By 9 o'clock, 10 people. Word was spreading. Neighbors were texting their friends. People walking by stopped because of the smell. The cinnamon rolls sold out by 10. The chocolate chip cookies were gone by 11. Denise had to put out a sign saying she would have more baked goods tomorrow. Every customer was treated with the same respect. Rich or poor, young or old, Denise smiled at everyone. She learned their names. She asked about their day. She made each person feel welcome. Within 2 weeks, there was a line outside the door every morning. People came from all over Seattle after reading reviews online. Best cinnamon rolls in the city. The owner makes you feel like family. You can taste the love in everything. In her 3rd week, Denise hired her first employee. Her name was Rita, a single mother of 3 who had been out of work for 6 months. Denise paid her $12 an hour, more than minimum wage. She offered flexible hours so Rita could pick up her kids from school. Why are you paying me so much? Rita asked. Because I know what it is like to struggle, Denise said. Because good work deserves fair pay. Because I want you to be able to take care of your family. By the end of the first month, Denise could not believe the numbers. After paying all her expenses, she had actually made a profit. Not much, but enough to save a little. Enough to buy her children new shoes. Enough to feel like maybe, finally, things were going to be okay. She moved her family to a better apartment in Fremont, closer to the bakery. 3 bedrooms instead of 2. Heat that worked. Windows that did not leak when it rained. Her son got his own room for the first time in his life. Her daughter decorated hers with her artwork. Denise had a small bedroom with a window that looked out at the street. One evening, after closing the bakery, Denise stood in the empty space looking around. 6 weeks ago, she had been a waitress getting humiliated at a Christmas party. Now she owned a successful bakery. She had employees who depended on her. She had customers who came back every day. She thought about Mr. Kim and what he had done for her. She had tried to call him to say thank you, but Patricia said he did not take personal calls. All Denise could do was work hard and build something good, just like he had asked. Tears rolled down her face. But this time they were tears of joy and gratitude. She had done it. Against all odds, she had actually done it. Her dream was real. Her life had changed. And it all started because one person saw her being treated badly and decided to do something about it. New Year's Day arrived cold and clear in Seattle. Denise's kitchen had been open for 3 days. Business was better than Denise had dared to hope. That morning, she arrived early as always to start baking. By 9 o'clock, the bakery was filled with the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls and bread. Several customers sat at the small tables, drinking coffee and reading newspapers. Outside, a black luxury car pulled up to the curb. Gerald Hammond sat behind the wheel, staring at the bakery through the windshield. He had been sitting there for 10 minutes, trying to work up the courage to go inside. His lawyer's advice echoed in his head. Just apologize. Swallow your pride. Your entire business depends on it. Gerald hated this. He had never apologized to anyone in his life. Certainly not to a waitress. But the past week had been a nightmare. 3 investors gone. Building violations piling up. Business partners avoiding his calls. He was watching his empire crumble. Whoever was behind this had made their message clear. Apologize or lose everything. Gerald got out of the car. He wore an expensive coat and polished shoes. He looked through the bakery window and saw her. Denise stood behind the counter wearing a white apron dusted with flour. She was smiling at a customer, her face bright and happy. Gerald took a deep breath and pushed open the door. A small bell rang above his head. Denise looked up from the register. Good morning. Welcome to Denise's kitchen. What can I get for you today? She did not recognize him at first. Why would she? He had been just another rude rich man at a party full of rude rich men. Gerald stepped closer to the counter. Miss Walker. Denise looked at him more carefully. Her smile faded slightly as recognition dawned. Her expression became guarded. Mr. Hammond, she said quietly. The other customers in the bakery sensed something happening. Conversations stopped. People watched. Gerald cleared his throat. The words felt like broken glass coming out of his mouth. I came to apologize for what happened at the Christmas party. What I did was wrong. How I treated you was wrong. I am sorry. The bakery was completely silent. Everyone was watching now. Denise studied his face. She could see he did not want to be here. She could see this apology was costing him something. But she could also see fear in his eyes. Someone had forced him to come. Someone had made him feel powerless, just like he had made her feel powerless that night. For a moment, she considered throwing him out. She had every right to. But her grandmother's voice spoke in her memory. Being right and being kind are both important, baby. But kindness will take you further. Thank you for coming here, Denise said finally. I accept your apology. Gerald blinked, surprised by her calm response. Would you like to buy some bread or pastries? Denise asked. Gerald had not expected this. He had expected her to yell at him or make a scene. Instead, she was offering to serve him like any other customer. Yes, he said. What do you recommend? The cinnamon rolls are popular. The chocolate chip cookies. The apple pie is good too. Gerald pointed at several items in the display case. I will take 2 cinnamon rolls for cookies and a loaf of bread. Denise packed everything carefully in a white paper bag. Gerald handed her a $20 bill. She gave him his change. As Gerald took the bag, Denise spoke again. Her voice was kind but firm. "Mr. Hammond, I hope you learned something from this. How we treat people matters. It matters more than money or power or fancy clothes. Everyone deserves respect. The person serving your coffee. The person cleaning your office. The person parking your car. We are all human beings trying to live our lives with dignity." Gerald stood there holding the bag of pastries. Several customers nodded in agreement with Denise's words. "Have a good new year, Mr. Hammond," Denise said. Gerald left without another word. The bell rang as the door closed behind him. He sat in his car for a long moment, the bag of pastries on the passenger seat. He felt something he had not felt in years. Shame. Real deep shame. That waitress, that woman he had humiliated in front of 100 people, had just shown him more grace than he had ever shown anyone. She could have destroyed him in front of her customers. Instead, she had accepted his apology and treated him with kindness. Gerald drove away slowly. He did not know who had forced him to make this apology. He did not know how they had dismantled his business so quickly. But he understood the message. There were consequences for cruelty. There were people in this world who protected those who could not protect themselves. Back in the bakery, the customers started talking again. An older woman approached the counter. "That took courage," she said to Denise. "Accepting his apology like that. Treating him with kindness when he did not deserve it." Denise smiled. "My grandmother taught me that kindness is not about what other people deserve. It is about who you choose to be." That evening, after closing the bakery, Denise wondered about the timing. Gerald's apology had come just days after Mr. Kim helped her. The coincidence seemed too perfect. Had Mr. Kim done something to make Gerald apologize? She would probably never know for sure. Mr. Kim was impossible to reach. He moved in the shadows, helping people quietly and then disappearing. But Denise understood something important. Justice had been served. Not through courts or lawyers or public confrontation, but through someone powerful choosing to use that power for good. She locked the bakery door and looked at her reflection in the glass. A business owner now. Not a waitress being humiliated at a party. A woman building something real and good. Gerald Hammond had tried to make her feel small. Instead, his cruelty had led to her greatest opportunity. Sometimes the worst moments in life become doorways to the best ones. 3 years passed. Denise's kitchen became more than just a bakery. It became a Seattle landmark. Food bloggers wrote about it. Local magazines featured it in articles about the best breakfast spots in the city. People came from all over to taste the cinnamon rolls that everyone was talking about. But the food was only part of the story. People kept coming back because of how Denise made them feel. Every customer was greeted with a genuine smile. Every person was treated with respect, whether they ordered 1 cookie or 20 pastries. Denise now employed 4 people. Rita was still there, now the assistant manager. The other 3 were people who had struggled to find work. A young man who had been homeless for 6 months. A woman in her 50s who had been laid off and could not find anyone willing to hire her. A college student working her way through school. Denise paid all of them above minimum wage. She offered flexible schedules so they could handle their family responsibilities. She treated them the way she wished she had been treated when she was struggling. Her children grew up in the bakery. Her son was now 10 years old. He had discovered a love for cooking and wanted to become a chef. On weekends, he helped in the kitchen, learning to measure ingredients and follow recipes. Her daughter was 8. She loved greeting customers and making them feel welcome. She had her mother's warm smile and kind heart. The bakery was doing so well that Denise started saving money again. This time, not for a dream, but to buy the building she worked in. After 2.5 years, she had saved enough. She contacted Patricia Chun, the property manager, to ask about purchasing the property. Patricia smiled when they met. "Mr. Kim thought you might ask about this eventually. He has agreed to sell you the building." "How much?" Denise asked, nervous about the answer. Patricia slid a paper across the desk. The price was half of what the building was worth. Denise knew enough about real estate now to understand this. "This cannot be right," Denise said. "This building is worth twice this amount." "Mr. Kim sets his own prices," Patricia said simply. "He wants you to have it at a price you can afford." Denise felt tears in her eyes. Even now, 3 years later, Mr. Kim was still helping her. "I need to thank him," Denise said. "I have tried calling. I have sent letters. Please, can you arrange a meeting?" Patricia shook her head gently. "Mr. Kim does not take meetings like this. He prefers to stay in the background. But he knows you are grateful. Your success is all the thanks he needs. Denise signed the papers to buy the building. She was now a property owner. The little girl who grew up poor, the single mother who struggled to feed her children, now owned a building in Seattle. Every year on the anniversary of her bakery's opening, a card arrived. Always the same message in elegant handwriting. Dignity is the foundation. Success is what you build on top. A friend. Denise kept every card in a frame on the wall of her bakery. One afternoon, a journalist came to interview Denise for a story about successful small businesses in Seattle. They sat at one of the tables by the window. Outside, the Fremont neighborhood bustled with activity. "You have built something special here," the journalist said. "What is your secret to success?" Denise thought about the question. She thought about that Christmas Eve 3 years ago. She thought about Mr. Kim and his quiet kindness. She thought about her grandmother and the lessons about treating people right. "Treat people with respect," Denise said. "Everyone who walks through that door is important. The businessman in the expensive suit and the homeless person with just enough change for a cookie. They both get the same smile, the same respect. Success built on kindness lasts. Success built on treating people badly always falls apart eventually." The journalist wrote down her words. The article came out 2 weeks later. It was titled, "How Kindness Built a Seattle Empire." Across town, in a quiet office in downtown Seattle, Mr. Kim read the article. A small smile crossed his face. He cut out the article and placed it in a folder. The folder contained other articles about people he had helped over the years. People who had used their second chances to build good things. Mr. Kim's life had not changed much. He still ran his businesses, both the legitimate ones and those that existed in gray areas. He was still feared and respected in certain circles. But he had kept his promise to himself and to the memory of Dorothy, the woman who had stood up for him so many years ago. Anyone who worked for Mr. Kim or did business with him knew the rules. You could be tough in business. You could drive hard bargains. You could compete fiercely. But you never, ever disrespected working people. Servers, cleaners, drivers, anyone doing honest work was off limits. One evening, Mr. Kim was having dinner at one of his restaurants. At the next table, one of his business associates snapped his fingers rudely at a young waiter. "You, where is my drink? I have been waiting for 10 minutes. The waiter looked nervous. "I am sorry, sir. I will check on it right away." Mr. Kim stood up and walked to the table. His associate looked up, surprised. "Apologize to him," Mr. Kim said quietly. Now, the associate understood immediately. "I apologize. I was rude. Leave a 50% tip when you pay your bill," Mr. Kim added. The associate nodded quickly. Mr. Kim returned to his table. The lesson was clear. Power meant nothing if you used it to make others feel small. That same evening, Denise was closing her bakery. The last customer had left. Rita had cleaned the kitchen and gone home. Denise walked through the empty space, turning off lights. She paused at the window and looked out at the street. The sign for Denise's kitchen glowed warmly in the evening darkness. People walked by, some stopping to look at the menu posted in the window, making plans to come back tomorrow. Denise thought about how far she had come. From that humiliating moment on Christmas Eve to this. Her own business. Her own building. Employees who depended on her. Children who were proud of her. But mostly she thought about kindness. How one act of kindness from a stranger had changed everything. How that kindness had been given to him by someone else years before. How she was now passing that kindness on to her employees, who would pass it on to others. Her daughter's voice came from the back room. "Mom, I am ready to go home." Denise smiled. Her children had been doing homework in the office while she closed up. "Coming, sweetheart." As they walked to the car, her daughter asked a question. "Mom, why did Mr. Kim help you start the bakery? You did not even know him." Denise thought about her answer carefully. Because someone once helped him when he needed it. And that is how the world is supposed to work. We help each other. We treat people with dignity and respect. When you have more than you need, you help someone who has less. When you have power, you protect people who do not. That is what makes us human. "Will I do that when I grow up?" her daughter asked. "You already do it, baby. Every time you are kind to someone at school. Every time you share what you have. You are already doing it." They drove home through the Seattle streets. The city lights sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Mr. Kim was probably working late in his office. Somewhere, Gerald Hammond was hopefully a better person than he had been 3 years ago. Somewhere, people were learning the same lessons Denise had learned. Dignity cannot be taken from you unless you give it away. Kindness creates waves that spread farther than you can see. True power is not about control. It is about what you build and who you lift up along the way. Success that comes from treating people right lasts longer than success built on cruelty. Everyone deserves respect, no matter what job they do or how much money they have. One act of courage or kindness can change someone's entire life. Justice sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. And how we treat people when we have power shows who we really are. These lessons, born from a moment of humiliation and transformed by unexpected kindness, became the foundation of everything Denise built. Not just a bakery, but a life of meaning. Not just success, but success that mattered. The light in Denise's kitchen window stayed on, a small beacon of hope in the city. A reminder that good things can come from bad moments. That there are still people who use their power to help instead of hurt. That dignity, respect, and kindness still matter in a world that sometimes forgets. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button right now. Tomorrow, we are dropping another powerful story about justice, courage, and the strength of the human spirit. You will not want to miss it. Like this video if you believe in treating people with respect. Comment below and tell us what lesson from this story spoke to you the most. Share this with someone who needs to hear this message today. Your support means everything to us. Every view, every like, every comment helps us bring more stories like this to the world. Stories that remind us of what really matters. Stories that inspire us to be better. Thank you for being part of this community. We will see you in the next one.